We're here at Globe Forum in Vancouver, joined by Susannah Pierce, President and Country Chair of Shell Canada. Susannah, great to see you.
Good to see you, John.
And in person.
Yes, I know, it's fantastic.
So much has changed since the last Globe Forum. It's dizzying to think about. Pandemic, war, economic disruption, and so much more. How has all of that changed your net zero thinking?
That's a great question, and you know, I think if we think back for Shell, our net zero commitment has been around, previous to the pandemic, but we really consolidated this commitment in our Powering Progress strategy, which came out in 2021. And that really has focused our mind on what does it take to get there. One of the interesting things about net zero for us is when we talk about it and when we commit to it, it's scope 1, 2, and 3. So it's the emissions which we create when we produce energy. It's the emissions we cause to be created because of electricity consumption or steam or heat. But it's also the emissions of our customers, and that's what we call scope 3. And 90% of the emissions we need to tackle are our customers, scope 3. And that's really difficult because we can control scope 1 and 2 to a larger extent than 3. But with that in mind and that target in mind, with the pandemic happening and now certainly with the challenges of war in Ukraine, it certainly does increase the complexity, I would say. And I think it increases, the challenges we have to work with all the parties we need to get to that commitment of net zero by 2050. Having said that though, it doesn't change the commitment. The commitment is there. We have a commitment to achieve net zero by 2050.
Strategy, as you know, is hard. Execution often is harder. What will you need and what will other players in the sector need to achieve on an execution level? What's expected of them?
Well, it's going to come back to we need everybody to come into a room, put what is required on the table, and then work together to achieve it. And it has to be on a systems basis. So for example, if we think about hydrogen, green hydrogen. Again, we know how to produce green hydrogen, but again, we need customers to want to consume green hydrogen. So if we recognize that we've got a number of different customers that are prepared to step forward and look at hydrogen as a fuel source, well, what do you need, customer, to make that happen? Oh, well, hydrogen's more expensive. Okay, let's look at ways we can reduce the cost. Oh, I need to find a way of getting there. Okay, let's look at the infrastructure to get it to you. Oh, I need to be able to find a site where I can produce it. Okay, let's work together to do that. So if we've got all of the willing parties together, now let's start to tweak the ecosystem to deliver it.
Last question. When Canadians look at climate change, they often see the challenges, maybe even more so in the current environment. What should Canadians be excited about when they look at the decade ahead?
Well, I'll share with you that, what I'm excited about, and I think Canadians can be excited about, is when my company looks at Canada. What's great about Canada is we have all of the natural endowments to be a real player in the energy transition. Part of that is because we have the commitment and the regulations in place that are driving these sorts of commitments, driving investments that wouldn't otherwise happen. You have the commitment of the Indigenous communities to work together, many of whom I work with, to say, yeah, what can we do to be a part of something like this? But you also have, again, the opportunity to decarbonize things like natural gas, to create hydrogen. You have the opportunity for carbon capture sequestration in the basal Cambrian sands in Alberta, which is some of the best geological reservoir, which we have tested and we have stored more than 6 million tons with Quest. You have the opportunity for biofuels. You have the opportunity for companies like Terra Mera, where they're looking at how do we capture and how do we measure carbon sequestration in the soil. So you have all of these different opportunities in Canada, nature-based systems, for example, in forests, where we can actually play a significant role in demonstrating how to decarbonize. So when I look at Canada, when my company looks at Canada, we see huge potential. And we see that a lot of the table is being set with some of the regulations and some of the incentive structures that are there. So that makes me pretty excited. And I think, again, each one of us, recognizing our own scope 1, let's ask ourselves, what do I need to decarbonize? How do I drive that? Working with the private sector and working with governments.
Susannah, thank you.
Thank you, John.